tonight's demo is all about using that One Stroke by Donna Dewberry double loading carousel. So I'm going to go ahead and just get overhead, and we're going to start by explaining this amazing tool and how it was designed and why it was designed the way it was. Okay, so this is the double loading carousel. Whether you have it in green or purple, this is what it looks like, okay? And so I'm just going to kind of go over the anatomy of this tool first and explain to you how it's built and why it's built that way. Some of this is going to be kind of remedial for some of you, I'm sure, if you've taken any one-stroke class or watched Donna's Relax and Paints or Practice Strokes where she's talked about it. But I'm going to try and go into a little more in-depth explanation. And please, please, if you have questions, for those of you who are watching on my live stream, if you have questions, please go ahead and ask them. If you're watching this as the replay, you're welcome to ask questions as well, and I will respond in writing to those questions. So please fire away. All right, so this comes, see, this is what it comes, when it comes out in the package, it comes like this, all right? And so it's got this lid, right, like that. And so you can remove this lid, and there is a sponge inside, and you can put this in water, wring it out, and put it back into the lid, and there are holes in this lid, okay? So then you bring it out. You don't want it real soppy wet, just damp, okay? And then you're going to press the lid down so that it stays tight. Then you're going to remove the master lid, all right? So let me back up just a minute. You're only adding water to that sponge if you're trying to preserve the paint that you have in your double loader. Okay, but that's the way that this lid is designed. It's a lid within a lid, and this is where you would dampen the sponge and put it in. Okay, out of the package, do I want you to do that? No. Okay, okay, master lid off, and then we have the actual product itself. And so did you know there is another lid in here? Okay. And a lot of people don't realize that. They see this little shallow well right here, and they think that that's part of this, and it's got a lip. But I'm going to tell you, and if you've never taken it off, I want you to make sure you do this, because this removes. And then you can put a medium in here or water or whatever you need to. And then this goes on top, and that can preserve that from drying out. And you can even put something else inside this little cubby, okay, if you need to. Then you have two, okay? All right, so remove those. Now we have our double loader. And I want you to see, if you have Donna's painter's palette, okay? Let me back up just a hair here. If you have her painter's palette, you know that this holds a 9-inch foam plate, right? 9-inch foam plate goes under these two little nubs right here, and then you push under that nub right there, right? And so we know that's how that works, right? So, and this is a wonderful tool for people who are teaching, or you're walking around, you're holding your paint. It's a multi-handed tool. You can put your thumb in this way for lefties or righties, right? So it holds the palette nice and firm on the palm of your hand, and you don't have that grip and the pain that can cause, okay? So also, this holds this. So you're going to put one side under these are triangular. So under one of these nubs, you're going to put that side, and then you're going to line up these curved areas here with these nubs right there. And you're going to give it a little twist after you've laid it down, and then it will not fall out. Okay, so that holds it in place. Do you have to have this to use this? No, but it's a good idea. And a lot of times they sell them as the tool kit all together with the painter's palette, the one-stroke double loader, and the brush basin that comes with that too. Okay, it doesn't come with it, as it's in the tool kit as an option. Okay, all right, so let me set that aside, and we're going to focus on this guy. Now, out of the box, you can use it just like it is. It's smooth plastic, and you can put the paints in it, and you do your double loading. And when you're done doing that, you have to clean out the paint, okay, which is not hard to do. You can let it dry and peel it out. You can put water in it and let it sit in a utility tub and then rinse it out and wipe it out. I prefer the press and seal method just because I don't like cleaning this. And I will tell you that over time, so you have to make a choice here. So Glad Press and Seal, if you're familiar with that product, I know this doesn't translate to other countries, but this is a product that we have in the United States called Glad Press and Seal. And it has that roll of plastic that has sticky back on it, a sticky back on it. And so you are going to pull out a sheet that is slightly larger than your double loader size, okay? And this sticky back goes down, all right? And so you're going to press this into all the little grooves of this double loader, and then you can put paint on it, do whatever you need to with it, and when you're all done, you tear it out, pull it back out and throw it away. Okay, so I prefer that method just because I can easily remove all the paint and then move on to the next. So what I'd like to show you is how to apply that. But at first I want to explain, so over time of putting this in frequently, it does build up a sticky residue on the double loader. So you can remove that with some Goo Gone or something like that that will take that residue off. But once it's on there, if you don't remove it, then you really are kind of committed to doing the press and seal process every time, because I've tried to put paint in here after having used press and seal for a long time on that sticky residue, and then it's really hard to clean it off because that paint sticks to that sticky residue. So you have to make a decision. So I've opted for the press and seal process. Okay, so here's what I do. And I'm going to tell you that I have a scruffy brush that I use just for the purpose of putting the press and seal into the double loader, because it does over time kind of beat up that brush and split it apart because of the pressure. And it also will pick up some of that sticky stuff off the backside of the press and seal, and it gets into the bristles of the brush. So I just designate this is my press and seal applicator scruffy brush, or you can use an old brush, whatever you want. But that's what I do for me. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is take that square and you're going to lay it over loosely. Don't press it down at all, over the surface of your double loader. All right, and then you're going to press into the center and push all the way around so it goes into the grooves of that middle section. Okay, now at this point, all you need to do is pick a section to start with, and you're going to push into the center and then out the runway, up the side, right? And so you're trying to get that as close to the edges of the grooves as possible. Now, you're going to have some wrinkles because it's a square peg and a round hole, okay? But just keep pushing and sliding all the way around. See there, I'm going to have some wrinkles. That's okay. You just press it down, okay? Push it in, slide it out. We'll come back this way. And over time, you'll get really good at it, and you'll be able to reload your loader with a fresh press and seal in seconds. But you want to have it pressed down as firmly as possible. The first few times, it's not going to stick that well. Over time, as you build up that sticky residue, it's going to work in your favor because then it will stick pretty well. One pet peeve that I have when I see people show their double loaders in pictures and things is that the press and seal is barely pushed down. You want this pushed so that you have no gap between the plastic and the groove as much as possible, okay? So it should be firmly in place. Once that's done, then you're going to just wrap it around the edges and you're good to go. You can either put it in that palette like I showed you, or you can just use it as is. All right. Now, once you're using your double loader and you're done for your painting session, but you don't want to necessarily throw the paints away, you can leave this as is. And sometimes it's a smart idea to have a couple double loaders, especially if you've got different projects going on. Okay. But what you can do then is you're going to omit this piece because it won't close with that press and seal in there and this put on, because you have to push it down really hard. So just set that aside. But you're going to do that process of dampening the sponge, wringing it out, putting it in the top lid, sealing that top lid down, and then lining up these grooves with these nubbins right here. All right. And then you're going to seal the whole thing down. And this will keep, and I will tell you, I have tried it for about anywhere from 3 weeks to 30 days. Okay. Depending on how frequently you keep that sponge dampened. Okay, so that's the secrets of preparing your double loader and using it for preserving paint. Now, let's talk a little bit about using it for loading your brushes, because that's the main purpose of this tool, is to help our one-stroke painters to not have muddy brushes when you're loading with paint. Okay. So, and if you want this tool, if you do not have this tool, you can go to onestroke.com and order this tool directly from them. They ship to you internationally. And if you, what was I going to just say? Oh, if you are a One Stroke Advantage member, you can use your 20% discount. So, all right. So I'm going to show you how to load for this. Let's put out some different colors. So I've got Violet Pansy. I'm going to put that right here. And some Wicker White. Now you're going to put in the runways next to each other the colors that you want to pick up as a double loading combination. Okay. So in this case, I've got Wicker White and Violet Pansy. I'm also going to put out some leaf colors. So I've got some Thicket. I'm going to skip over here and we're going to put some Thicket and some Citrus Green. I had a lady who came from the UK for certification and had never seen press and seal before. And it was for her level 1 and level 2. And so I showed her the press and seal method, and she and her husband went to Walmart the next day and purchased multiple rolls to take home with her back to the UK. She was so excited. She'd never seen that product before. And I'm going to put a little bit of daffodil yellow over here. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to put some floating medium right here in the middle. And that's how you would load for colors, for flower colors, leaf colors, and multi-loading colors. Okay. You want some separate empty runways to do your blending in. And you want colors next to each other that are going to be double loaded. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take, first of all, a 3/4 inch flat. And I'm going to get that damp, lay it on paper towel, and we're ready to start loading. Question, do you push it in the middle or all the way down? Are you talking about the lid or the press and seal, Curtis? If it's the lid, you're going to push around the edges. If it's the press and seal, you're going to do like I showed you, where you start in the middle, pushing it all the way in, and then work out from the middle out. Okay. All right. So let's come here, and I've got this 3/4 inch flat. And well, hold on. Let me just answer a couple. So Sue, you said you need to get in the habit of using press and seal. You always hate putting the paint down the sink. So that's the thing. So, you don't have to use the press and seal, but if you are concerned about putting the paint down the sink, you can wait for it to dry. That's an issue of its own. But if you have a utility tub, okay, you can first of all wipe out the paint with a paper towel as much as possible, and then wash the rest of it out in a utility tub. And typically utility sinks are linked to a drain that is much wider than your kitchen sink. So if you have something like that, that's preferred. Or you can take it to a bucket of water and wash it there and then dump the bucket outside in the grass if you want to preserve your drains, okay? Another question, are the two colors go in the center of the runway? Okay, good question. So I typically put them in the center of the runway because that gives me the ability to move back and forth to pick up my colors, because we're just picking up paint here. We're not loading our brush here, okay? So first thing I want to do is I'm going to split my brush in half right along that center rib right there. And I'm going to pick up paint on both sides of my brush. Now that's a lot of paint. But I'm going to come over here now and I'm going to push and push and push in a clean runway with my handle straight up and down. And that's going to work all that paint into my brush, right? And so now I've got a properly double loaded brush. I can go over here and grab more color if I need to, but I want to come back to this runway and keep picking up my paint. I won't want to come back over here unless I need more paint, all right? And so you can kind of keep tapping that down and have it come over again. But when you need to pick up more paint, you're going to come in here and then you're going to come back over here and work this in, okay? But now I've got a really good load on that, and that's a lot of paint. You saw how much paint I picked up, and that's how much paint we need in those brushes, guys. A lot of you I see are starving your paint. You're not using enough. We want to get paint into the bristles and on the outside of the bristles, okay? So all that paint is now loaded into my 3/4 flat. All right, so then of course we can do our strokes, but I just want you to see a properly loaded brush like that. You're going to have your light and dark colors and you're going to be able to get a nice stroke. All right, so let's come down a little closer here. And I'm just going to do a real quick rose wiggle stroke. Right, and you can see I don't have to do any blending strokes. I don't have to do any kind of worries about any kind of streaks or anything like that. And I've got a properly loaded brush. I have no dry edges. With all that paint in there on paper, and I don't have any dry edges, okay? Now, if I lose my white, for some reason I get too much purple and it works over into my white. I want you to see we can still do what's called side loading. And so you can come right up here next to that white and get a strong side load of white on that light colored edge. All right, even with a properly loaded brush, and you can come in here and do your next stroke. Okay. So you can still come back to that white if you lose your dark or lose your light color from the dark. All right, and you still get a nice load. Okay. There you go. So that got me a nice stroke all the way around with that flower. All right, now you can see I've used most of that paint from my brush, but I come right back to this runway and pick up more before I go over here. If I can't get enough paint on my brush out of this runway, then I need to come over here and get more fresh paint and work this in, okay? Now, the biggest brush you're probably going to be able to load in these runways is a 3/4 flat, and you almost go a little bit over that edge, you can see, all right? So, and you can do a little bud here. All right, we can do another center, there. More fresh paint. And as long as you keep that handle straight up and down, right, then you will always keep from getting muddy. Handle orientation is the #1 killer of a good load of paint. If your handle is not straight up and down and straight to you, you will get muddy paint. Because let me show you what happens. And first of all, holding the palette straight onto you. So I'm centered right here, right? Holding that palette straight onto me, my brush straight to me, handle up and down, stroke this way, will keep you from getting muddy. I keep my dark on my dark side, my light on my light side. Hard to say. If I, for any reason, let's say I come over here, now I'm loading, but I'm actually tilting my handle to my left. What's going to happen is I'm going to push that purple over. You see what's happening? See the line? It's taking that purple and pushing it to the right side of the brush because I'm tilting my handle. If I come over here and do the same thing, push to the right, it's going to push that white over and shove the purple over, which is how you get back to a good load, by the way. But if you don't keep that brush straight onto you and you're getting muddy, that's most likely why your handle is not straight, okay? So very, very important. All right, and we're just going to finish up this rose right here. So these are things that we learn in Skill Builders and Level 1 certification, okay, and more. And I'm just finishing up certifying 2 lovely ladies, and they learned a ton using the Skill Builders to understand the most about one-stroke painting. All right, now I want to show you something a little bit different. So Brenda, you made a comment. Shelley pushed and blended her brush 35 times. If you think I'm counting, I'm not. It has nothing to do with the number. It has everything to do with the visual look of my brush. All right. So learning to know what a well-loaded brush looks like is very, very key. Does it take 8 times? Does it take 35 times? No, it takes however many times it takes to get a well-loaded brush. Okay. All right, so here I have a 12 flat and we've got my leaf colors. So I'm going to show you here how to use this flat, which is smaller, in the double loading segment, okay, in the blending runway. So I'm going to come right here again. I'm going to split my brush. I'm going to pick up these 2 colors. Now I'm not going to push quite as hard because I don't need as much paint on this size brush, okay. So now, do I come back here and load and risk the movement left to right? No, I come in here, closer to the center where the pathway is more narrow. This is pie-shaped for a reason, okay? And then I hug one line of the pie edge, right? The runway edge, so that I don't move to the left or to the right too much. I stay right here on the left line, and that way I still keep my double load. Okay, picking up more paint and working that in. All right, now I'm going to dip into floating medium and work that in. And then I come back here every time I need a fresh load. All right, and then we can come right here and stroke. Let's just do a pretty little calyx up here. Okay. And then push and lift and pull down for a stem. All right. Now, what if I want to pick up another color? So I've got my 2 leaf colors. I come right here. And let's double split that again and get more color. Okay. Now I want to get some yellow in there. I can come right here like I showed you with the white, and I can side stroke some white and then come right over here and work it in. Side stroke a little more white, work it in. Yellow, that's not white. Yellow, work it in. Okay. All right, and I'll get a good load every time using this double loader. Now, can you do all of this in a foam plate? Yes, but it takes more discipline, and you risk getting that muddy color by pushing too far to the right, to the left, handle's not straight, or you're not being confined inside this little runway up here. Now, the other thing I see a lot happen on people using the foam plates, which I use foam plates all the time, and that's what I grew up with in one stroke because we didn't have the double loader when I first started. But I want to tell you that you need to force yourself to stay within that area with that paint. Just like we have here, you want to replicate on this plate, okay? You want the 2 colors together. You want to grab those colors and get them on your brush and then double load. And you want to stay within this like 2-inch swath as you're loading and stroking to get the paint in the brush. You don't want to be painting all over your plate. I see so many people that they're loading over here and then that gets a little muddy. Now they're moving over here and that gets muddy, and now they're moving over here, and pretty soon they've got a very nicely painted plate and they've wasted so much paint, okay? And frustration too. So just keep that in mind so that you don't get frustrated. This double loader is a really good discipline tool to use to help you keep your brush properly loaded. Okay. So now, one last question is the smaller brushes, right? So 12 and under, you want to stay up here as much as possible. Stay out of this big, large area down here. Down here is your 3/4 and your 16s, moving more into the center for the smaller brushes. But what about our script liner? All right, so water, and you want to get inky color for, say, signing or curlicues or whatever. So you can come and pick up some of your color that you want to get inky, just a little bit with that brush, and then you get your water in this runway and work that together. All right, and let's get a little bit more and bring that in here. All right, and then you can still twist out and get your tip and do your curlicues. Okay, so you can still use your script liner for lots of curlicue loading inky paint. Okay, so now that I'm done painting, maybe I want to do a greeting card later, or just reuse or use up this leftover paint because I can't put it back in the bottle. And that's where this lid comes in handy, where you're going to wring out this sponge, right? Get it damp, wring it out, cover that up, line up your 2 nubs here with these indentations on the lid, and then press the whole thing down. Okay, so thank you guys for indulging me with learning all about the double loading carousel. All right, just want to make sure that I answer everybody's questions before I go away from this. Linda, I needed this reminder. Bobby doesn't blend her brush enough. Yes, I see a lot of people that just dab and grab the paint, go a couple of times and stroke, and that's not going to get you that pretty blend on the brush. You've got to work it in each time you pick up fresh paint, okay? All right, so... All right, I'm going to go ahead and come up then. I don't see any other questions from any, so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you give your double loader a try, get it out and play with it and work with that. It is a perfect tool for the beginner one-stroke painter. Okay.